long superior lobe, and we've got the superior vena cava coming off the heart here, and it continues up to this point right here. Where it branches, it's no longer the superior vena cava, so it's just from that branch point back down to the heart itself. The next one on there is the azygos. It's coming off of the superior vena cava, and to see it, we actually have to fold the lung this way. Be delicate with your lungs, they're fragile, but if we fold it back, we can see this large blood vessel that comes off the superior vena cava just before it enters the right atrium right there. So that is the azygos vein, and it's taking blood from, essentially it runs along the spinal column, but dumps into the superior vena cava just before they enter the right atrium. So that's the azygos vein. Have to kind of pull the lung back to see that one. The sternal, this cat has largely had its sternal vein removed, and this happens just in the cutting process. Occasionally we'll have some residual sternal vein kind of running along the sternum here, and I suspect somebody's cat out there will have it. We do have the attachment point, or I shouldn't say the attachment point, the point at which it begins. So that would be the beginning of the sternal vein, and in the cat it would have run up to the sternum, and then it would have run down the length of the sternum. So that's the sternal vein. Let's see. So from there we'll just go into the major blood vessels up here. I'll kind of do right and left at the same time. So at our branch point, to our next branch point, we have the brachiocephalic vein. So it's literally only this long from one branch point to the next. This is the right brachiocephalic because we're on the right side. Here to that branch point would be the left brachiocephalic. So right and left brachiocephalic. It's brachiocephalic because brachio is arm, cephalic for head. So you can see we have a branch going one out to the arm, and this one, it's going eventually up to the head. Same thing here, it's eventually going up to the head. So we have two branch points going in different directions. We'll just track the left side. It just repeats over here on the right side. So when it branches, you have one major blood vessel that goes low and another major blood vessel that goes high. We'll follow the one out to the left first. So as soon as it branches, it becomes the subclavian vein. Subclavian because technically the clavicle would be right about here, and it's just below the clavicle. We've cut and removed most of that, but subclavian for being just below the clavicle. So subclavian vein continues on out, and here we have now two more names, but it's the same blood vessel. It's just based on where it's located. So right here, we put everything kind of tried to back in its anatomical position. This would be the axillary region, armpit, right? So if we take that line and kind of extend it up here, then where that blood vessel crosses our axillary region, now we're just going to call it the axillary vein. It's the same blood vessel. I've snipped it here, you can see, but Kelly snipped it. No, it was me. So we call that the axillary vein. And then down here, once we're clearly out and onto the arm, we'll call it the brachial vein. So subclavian, axillary, and brachial, just based on location.
So that one vein has three names.
One vein has three names.
Great,
Correct.
that's awesome.
Yeah. This guy, where it branches and goes up, this is our jugular. The big one is our external jugular, and then it's a little hard to see that thinner little guy right there, smaller diameter, that is our internal. So that's our left external jugular and our left internal jugular. We've got the same thing over here on the right side. So here's our right external, and here's a case where we didn't get a lot of dye into one of the blood vessels. This is our right internal. So it has an attachment point right there, and it runs up the inside of our throat, essentially next to the esophagus, and that is our right internal jugular.
So is this one part of the external?
That's part of the external. Yep, it kind of hits right here and turns and goes on up. Up here, we've got the transverse. I haven't cleared this out very much, but you can see kind of that dark line running across there. Exactly, on the transverse plane. So that is the transverse jugular right there. Let's see, we didn't do it on the right side, but we can run through it real quickly here. I haven't cleaned it all out, but we've got brachiocephalic, external jugular, subclavian, and here's where it looks like not a lot of dye. Looks like we hit a point where the dye just kind of stopped. It didn't get out into the blood vessel down here, so probably not going to be worth our time to go through it. We've got, at least, as long as we have one good side, we're good, because the two venous sides are just mirror images of each other. Whatever's on the left, same thing's on the right, we just call it right. Okay, so let's go through the atrial system. So aortic arch, this will be a little bit difficult to see for everybody because of the lighting in here and kind of the contortion of the kitty cat I have to do. But you can see this is the aortic arch. It goes into, there's a little bit of fat right there that we could remove, but it goes out there, out of the left ventricle and turns and goes down. So that structure is the aortic arch. We know it's the aortic arch because these two major arteries, branch off of it, but that's the aortic arch there. Just below that, we got the thoracic aorta. It's just a continuation. And again, it'll be hard for you guys to see. My hands are all in the way, but you can see that aorta just continues on down and heads towards the diaphragm. So down in that region.
Thoracic aorta.
That's the thoracic aorta. I also have abdominal aorta on here. That was my mistake. I should have put it on the next page. That's once the aorta goes through the diaphragm and comes out the other side. So we'll get him next lab period. Okay, so we're going to run through the branching of the arteries just like we did with the veins. The arteries are not a mirror image of each other. So right side is not like left side. They're similar, but not exactly the same, and they're also not quite the same to our branching blood vessels. So we'll just start with this first blood vessel right here. The first one that comes off is the brachiocephalic. Just like we had a brachiocephalic vein, we have a brachiocephalic artery. Brachiocephalic because it supplies blood again to the head cephalic, brachial region, arm, so brachiocephalic. Once it comes up and branches here, you can see that one blood vessel is going up one side of the esophagus and the other is going up the opposite side of the esophagus. So this is our right common carotid and this is our left common carotid. The first branch point was actually back here, right there, and that is the right subclavian artery. So subclavian because eventually it's going to run right here underneath where our clavicle would be, and then it continues out onto the arm. And just like the veins, it's named subclavian when it's in the subclavian region. It's named axillary, so that's our axillary artery when it's in the armpit region, and I haven't cleared it on out, but when it's way down here, we would call it the brachial artery. On the other side, similar, but different, because we have this other major blood vessel that comes off here, but there is no branch that goes to the head. So we don't call it the brachiocephalic because there's no cephalic component. It comes all the way up to the clavicle region and turns immediately and comes out to the arm with no branches going up to the head. So it's subclavian here, all the way up to here, and that's the subclavian region. After that, the naming continues like all the others. Once we get that blood vessel, say right about here, you can see it there, that's in approximately the armpit region, so I'd pin it there for the axillary. Then we can see it again all the way out here, and there it is again, and it would be brachial. So same blood vessel, this time going all the way back to the heart itself, just named differently based on different regions. All right, I think that's it, on the kitty cat at least.